Hey guys, there are a few prerequisites for getting started with your first Spring Boot project. I'm going to go over them in this video. We're going to download an IDE, we're going to download a database engine, and we're going to download our first Spring Boot project to get started with. Now for IDEs, you have a couple to choose from. I prefer IntelliJ for Spring Boot projects, but I'll also show you how to get started with VS Code as well. You just need a few extra plugins. And for the database, we can just get by with an in-memory H2 database, but I will show you how to go ahead and start up MySQL as well as MySQL Workbench. And we'll also be installing Postman to test out API requests. So I'll show you how to do that as well. So I'm going to start off with a fresh Windows 11 installation. Let me go ahead and get this booted up. Okay, logging into a fresh Windows installation here. No software downloaded yet. The reason why I'm running this in a virtual machine is just so I can demonstrate a completely fresh install, nothing installed on my computer. I'm going to start from the very beginning. And here we go. Let's go ahead and start with installing IntelliJ. Going to go to the download section. We're going to be getting the community edition. Queue that up. And while that's downloading, let's go ahead and download VS Code as well. Okay, let's go ahead and queue up Postman. And lastly, we're going to download MySQL. And I'm just going to go ahead and select the installer for Windows. It's kind of the easiest way to install on Windows. Let's go ahead and download that. Okay, let's go ahead and start up IntelliJ. Next, 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 and install. Okay, we'll go ahead and open up IntelliJ here. Okay, we'll actually let this hang here until we download our Spring Boot project from Spring. Let's go over to the Spring website, Spring Initializer. If you don't already have Java installed, let's go ahead and install Java. Let's grab the Corretto 17 version and install that. Scroll down to Windows 64. We'll get this MSI installer. Okay, let's go ahead and install the Corretto 17. Finish, and we can see if we have Java installed by issuing the Java version command, and you can see we have Corretto 17 installed on our system. So let's head back to our Spring Initializer. We'll stick with 3.2.5. Add your group name. This is what the base package is going to be, typically your domain in reverse. Artifact, we'll stick with demo, packaging jar, Java 17. Okay, let's go ahead and add a couple dependencies. Let's go ahead and add Spring Web here, and that's good for now. Let's go ahead and generate the project. And we can extract the project. Let's go ahead and extract it. Let's go ahead and open IntelliJ. Okay, I'm gonna go to File, Open. Let's find where we downloaded that project. Demo is what it was called. Okay, so what it's doing is just resolving all the dependencies that we declared in Gradle. It's gonna download them. It'll be available the next time we build this project, so won't take near as long to build it the second time. Okay, so the project has built. We can see in our Gradle toolbar, we now have all the various tasks that we need, such as our boot run task, which is to run the Spring Boot project, and then also our boot jar project that we will use to export a fat jar. We can look in the project, we can see that we have an entry point for the application, and we can see that we have an application.properties file. If you saw my structures video, you are already familiar with the application properties. Let's just go ahead and open up these two files. Okay, we can see this is the entry point for the Spring Boot application. Let's go ahead and try running it. And there we go, guys. We have our first Spring Boot application running in IntelliJ. We can see it's running on port 8080 right here. Let's go ahead and install the other applications I mentioned, MySQL, Postman, and we'll even get VS Code in there. And that'll be the end of this video. After which, if you already had this all set up, just go ahead and skip over to the next video where we actually get started creating our first Spring Boot project. Hit yes, hit yes again. Okay, I'll go ahead and choose the full install here. That way we go ahead and get MySQL Workbench installed as well. Very convenient. Go ahead and let it download the dependencies. And we'll take a quick coffee break while that's going. Okay, it looks like that finally completed. Let's go ahead and hit next. Okay, development computer. We're just using this for development purposes. Use a default port. Okay, go ahead and provide a root password. And this is just for development, so I'm just going to use root. We can go ahead and add a user here now, or we can do it later with our root account. Go ahead and just go to next. We want MySQL server to be a Windows service. That way we can easily run it from the task manager. Don't necessarily need to start it at setup. And hit finish. Go ahead and start MySQL workbench. Okay, by default, you should have this local instance here available. You might just want to check that you actually have the MySQL SQL server running. We can do that in the task manager. So let's just check our services here, scroll down to MySQL, and we see that it's running. Okay, so that means that we should be able to connect. And we're in. So we have MySQL server running. We'll be able to connect our Spring Boot project to this database, create a new schema in here just for our application, and we'll be ready to develop. Let's go ahead and close this, and let's just run through the Postman installer. So it's pretty nice to create an account because then you can access your API requests on any computer. I'm just going to go ahead and continue with the lightweight API client for now, and here we go. That's all it was. So now we can use this to test our Spring Boot REST API endpoints and make sure that they're behaving as we expect. This can kind of be like the front end, mimicking the front end application. So last thing I mentioned was VSCode. Let me just go ahead and show you how to get VSCode set up to be running a Spring Boot project. I'm gonna go ahead and close or stop the Spring Boot application in IntelliJ, because we're going to run it in VS Code. Okay, let's go ahead and launch VS Code. We are just going to want to get a couple extensions. Go ahead and search for Java, and we'll go ahead and get this extension pack for Java from Microsoft. That's basically adding the language support and IntelliJ plugins. And while that's installing, let's go ahead and also just install Gradle for Java. That's just going to give us that same kind of Gradle toolbar that we had in IntelliJ, where we can see all of our Gradle tasks that we can run. Otherwise, you can get by without installing the Gradle plugin. You would just have to use the command line and actually run the Gradle command to run the Spring Boot project. Okay, now that we have those plugins installed, let's go ahead and navigate to our folder where we have the project. Okay, we can see that the Java plugin is activating and the Gradle plugin is syncing the project. Okay, we can see the Gradle plugin has synced the project. We now have our Gradle tasks here. Boot run and boot jar are here within the application and build folder. Let's go back to the project structure, and we can see that the Java projects folder is still initializing. We can work right out of the demo folder as well. Doesn't really matter so much. Here's our build.gradle. Okay, so the Java plugin has finished syncing the project, so we can see the same package here, same application entry point, same build.gradle file. And if we go to our Gradle plugin, we can try starting our boot run task. And we can see that our Spring Boot project has started up in VS Code also. So that's it, guys. We have everything set up that we need to start creating Spring Boot projects. Please stick around for the next video where we will be creating a new Spring Boot project from scratch. If you have any questions, please leave your comments below. I've got all these links in the video description. Please like the video and subscribe, and I'll look forward to seeing you guys in the next video where we start building Spring Boot projects from scratch. Thanks, and see you then.